Join us in a festival that promises to be extraordinary, because Bali is extraordinary.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Ubud Writers and Readers Festival 2021. This year the festival returns with the theme Mulat Sarira, or self-reflection, which is drawn from a Balinese Hindu philosophy. So from 8th to 17th of October, we will explore the meaning of self-reflection, cultural introspection, and human rights, examining who we are, what unites and divides us, and what drives our actions. And tonight, I am going to be your moderator. My name is Suzy Hutomo. I live in Bali, so it's great that I can be the moderator here at the Ubud Writers and Readers Festival. And tonight we have two speakers, Professor Dr. Qing Li of the Nippon Medical School, and who is also the chairman of the Forest Medicine in Japan. And he has just written, well, it's been a few years now. He's got a book called Forest Bathing, How Trees Can Help You Find Health and Happiness.
Thank you.
And we also have Dr. Meg Lowman, or we'll call her Dr. Canopy Meg, who's a National Geographic explorer and the founder of the Tree Foundation. And she's here to talk about her book, The Argonaut. The Argonaut, sorry.
Thank you, Suzy. Lovely.
Sorry. Yes, I was just going to show you a book, actually, which I bought a digital copy. And tonight we have Dr. Meg Lowman, whom we're going to call Dr. Canopy Meg. And why is that? Because she just wrote this book called The Argonaut, A Life Discovering the Eighth Continent in the Trees Above Us.
Thank you, Suzy. Lovely.
Dr. Canopy Meg is a National Geographic explorer and the founder of the Tree Foundation. Welcome, everyone, to the Ubud Writers and Readers Festival. I'm really excited to have you both here because I'm a big lover of the environment. I love trees, you know, so it's really exciting for me. Can I start out with Dr. Qing Li?
Okay.
Great. So maybe you can tell us a little bit, Dr. Qing Li, how did you come to be focusing on forest medicine? Has that got to do anything with something in your childhood, perhaps? Give us a little glimpse into how you came to be doing what you are doing.
Okay. In fact, I was born in China, in a very small village. So in my village, there are a lot of popular forests. So I usually play the game in the forest with my friends. So I love the nature and forest from childhood. In fact, I graduated from Shanxi Medical University in China and got my medical doctor license in China in 1984. Then I came to Japan in 1988. And I also got the Japanese doctor license in Japan.
Okay.
So I have both doctor license in Japan and in China.
Wow. Yeah,
So
must have been something.
yeah. In fact, my major is environmental medicine.
I see.
So studies the effect of environment factors on home health. For example, the environment air pollution, the pesticides, also the stress, stress lifestyle. Yeah. In fact, the fault environment is also one kind of environment. So I also, in fact, some people study first, some people study medicine. I study first medicine to find the beneficial effects of the forest bathing.
I see.
So, in fact, I also have the background of studying at the Stanford University on the topic of immunology.
I see. Yes.
Anti-cancer protein. So, in fact, the forest bathing is proposed in Japan in 1982.
It was already from 1982.
I see. At the early stage, there are no scientific evidence, only common sense. So many people believe if we take forest bathing in the beautiful Japanese forest, we will get a good effect. But there are no data, no evidence.
Right.
So in fact, in the 2004, the Japanese forest agents studied the effect of forest bathing from the scientific perspective.
I see. And that was, is that the Nippon Medical School or another association?
Yeah, Nippon Medical School. Yeah, that time I was in at the Nippon Medical School. So because of my background, so I have the background of the forest medicine and environment medicine. I also have the background of the studies at Stanford University. So I also love nature from my childhood. From the background, So the Japanese forest agency invited me to the project, forest bathing project in 2004. From 2004, I have conducted many experiments on the topic of forest bathing. So, in fact, and I have published a lot of scientific paper in the topic of forest bathing, and I also published this book, the forest medicine in America in 2012. In 2012.
Oh, 2012.
So I have established a new science called the
forest medicine.
This is a new science. But
and that is a scientific book. I think you mentioned it's a book for.
This is a scientific book for researcher. So
fantastic.
In fact, I will talk you later. So I also published this book.
Yes.
This book. So I will talk you this book later. So this is why this is a background of my study of the forest bathing, of the forest therapy, and the forest medicine. So
Thank you.
It's okay?
Yes, it's okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Qing Li. That's a great understanding of your journey from your own hometown. And I know a similar story, I'm sure, from Meg, how your childhood and what you did in the end, actually fit together. But perhaps now to Dr. Canopy Meg. Could you tell us also a little bit about your own journey and how you came to be in Canopy Science?
Sure. And it's interesting, the parallel, because I guess I developed a new science as well as Doctor did. And my latest book is called The Arbornaut, but I published about a half a dozen textbooks and scientific books first, which sort of map the journey and the expertise of all that we've discovered in the tops of the trees. I'll see if I can share the screen, and if I can't, I'll keep talking. But basically, there's a lot of amazing biodiversity and what we've just, can you see that now?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. So maybe it's not going to quite share, but let's see again. The interesting thing about the, there we go. Okay. canopy is that, how about now? Can you see something? Yes.
Not
no?
yet.
Well, then never mind. I won't share it. We'll just talk about
No,
it.
it's happening now.
Oh,
It's
it is. Okay, then that's great. Then I will share it. But what's amazing is in the tops of the trees, thanks to a handful of us that climbed up and looked at the whole tree, not just the bottom of the tree in the late 1970s, we now know that about half of the species on the land part of our earth live in the treetops, which is amazing. And when I first got my start, I actually welded a slingshot out of a piece of metal and sewed a harness and borrowed some ropes from a caving team, because those kinds of equipment for going up to the top of the tree weren't readily available. And I do look back similarly to my own childhood, where I loved nature as a child. I lived in a very small town in northern New York State where there weren't movie theaters. There weren't, of course, computers or cell phones. And so I played outdoors a lot. I collected. Here I am with my wildflower collection as a child, where I entered it into a science fair. And I think for a lot of us who became biologists, we started out collecting things. I had snake skins under my bed and rocks and twigs and dried flowers. So my mother wasn't so happy about that. But anyway, you know, lo and behold, I grew up and continued my love of nature by climbing into trees and being one of the first people to explore the whole tree. Whereas foresters usually looked at the base of a tree and rarely went up, but they cut the tree down to come to them. I actually went up the tree and developed a lot of new methods, one of which is the canopy walkway, and we piloted some inflatable gadgets to go up trees, and some of us climbed at night because different animals are active at night. So it was quite an amazing journey. And again, the most important result might be to know that so many things live in the tops of trees, which makes it really, really, really important. In my book, I do pilot the timeline. I'll just kind of illustrate it here, but there were these amazing discoveries, but it's only in the last 30 years that we have had canopy science. Whereas people discovered coral reefs in the 1950s when scuba gear was invented. We went to outer space in the 1960s, but we didn't start exploring the tops of trees until the 1970s and 80s. So with that, I will stop sharing and we can just kind of chat. But that gives you a little summary of what's in the book. Hopefully my experiences developing this science of canopy biology, and also my hurdles as a woman in science, and maybe a little bit at the end about how is it we can save our forests, which is so important.
Yes, thank you so much. Such a fascinating. I mean, I've read your book. It's fascinating. The first part is about, you know, how you grew up and about all the challenges of being a woman in this very male-dominated field, and then onto the science. You know, absolutely amazing. And similarly with Dr. Qing Li, I enjoyed your book so much because it's a very calming book in a way, very orderly. You know, you're both quite similar in the sense that you're both scientists, but the approaches are very different. So I found it quite fascinating, and I would urge all of you out there at the Ubud Writers Festival to make sure you read both these books. Okay, so back again to Dr. Qing Li. You know, we're at a book festival, so now I'd like to ask both of you and Dr. Qing Li first. On your book, how did you come to write this more popular version? Because now I know you've written other books before, more scientific, but how did you decide to write something that was for the public? And was it difficult to write something like that after writing your scientific books?
Okay, thank you for your question. In fact, I told you, so in fact, the first page is my second book. The first book is First Medicine.
Right.
So I published this book in 2012 in America. But this book is for the research and not for the public. So in fact, after the publisher, the Penguin Random House, read this book. After they read my book, they found that this book is too difficult to the public.
I see.
So you have to write a book for public.
I see.
So we have decided to write a new book. That book is this book, the fourth paging. So
Right.
in fact, the purpose for this book is for the public, not for the research. So it's
Right.
very easy to understand the science of the fourth paging.
Right.
So in fact, as you know, I'm Chinese, not a native speaker,
Right.
English speaker, but I have the background of studying at the Stanford University.
Ah, I see.
Yeah,
Who helped
as a
you?
postdoc. I also, I almost visit America twice a year for attending the scientific meeting
Yes.
to present my data. So I can I can write English, but not a native speaker. So
Yes, but
for this reason, the publisher set up a team for my book.
I see. Wow.
So in the first place, we discussing the contents of the book. Then I wrote the first version of the draft.
Yeah.
Yeah, based on the discussion. So then I sent my draft to the team. So they are native speaker. So
Yes.
they will modify my English. So
Yes, of
after they modify my modification, they will return to me again. So I will confirm if their correction are good.
It's correct or not.
Are suitable. So
How?
we repeat this process several times.
Okay. How is it different though?
It took about 1 year. Yeah.
1 year. Yes, I understand.
Yeah.
Is it difficult to write for the public? To put the ideas for the public. In a way that was in a way that is easy for public to understand, rather than a medical book.
Yeah, you're right.
What's the difficulty?
Yeah, in fact, in the scientific book, we use a lot of figure. For example, like this, we use a lot of figure in this scientific book, but for the book for the public, you have to use the very easy word, easy word to describe the story.
Yes, the story behind the data.
The story that describe the hard for Beijing became from a feeling to a science.
Yes,
So,
I see.
Because I have a lot of data. It's not difficult to me to write this book because I have a lot of data. I just wrote this book based on this book and just use the words which are very easy to understand.
I see. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So the team, we have teamwork.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And now, Dr. Canopy Meg, can you tell us a little bit about writing your book? How did you?
Sure. This book is for the public, absolutely. And I will say that similarly to the doctor, I had a past of writing textbooks and other things. But for me, two reasons I wrote a book for the public. One is I was a very ordinary kid. I never had a woman science teacher. I didn't know girls could do science. I grew up in a small town without any museums or activities that would have given me some insight to science. So I felt like my story is one that maybe other kids could benefit from, knowing that even an ordinary kid can discover something new. And so that, to me, I hope was an inspiration for other kids. And secondly, as a girl in science, I knew that there's a lot of hurdles. And maybe if I could tell my stories, that young women could benefit from my I call them misadventures. From all of my bad experiences, it could be beneficial to girls moving forward. The reason I think I was excited about writing a book for the public maybe is because I'm a mom too. I'm a scientist, but I'm also a parent, and I was a single mom. So I grew up having to tell my boys at the dinner table when they were very little, what was mommy doing all day? So I had to learn about storytelling to make my children understand what their mom was doing. And that storytelling is, of course, I think the essence of writing a book for the public. And especially now in science, it's really important to communicate science. So maybe telling my stories in a way that the public can enjoy or understand is really important to helping them save forests, understand trees, and maybe even be part of the solution of our planet's health.
I also noticed in your how much importance you placed on involving students and children, and how did that also perhaps did you when you wrote the book also think that young children might be also inspired?
I hope so. And again, I guess think back to my own childhood where I wished I'd had stories of someone, or I wished I'd known that other people could overcome hurdles and solve problems in science and maybe do it the way I did it. So I was just hoping that it would serve as some kind of example. And like I said, even my mistakes could be useful to some young person reading it. And because I had to struggle a little bit, it makes me, I think, have a lot more empathy for students. So yes, I'm always trying to be inclusive in my science. I've been developing programs for kids in wheelchairs and for minorities, including girls, because I guess I see myself a little bit reflected in the fact that it wasn't easy. So therefore, maybe I can help make it a little easier for the next generation of young people.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I really love that. And then all your struggles as a woman, I totally identify with that.
And it's not just science. I know that in many fields, women are still juggling, making the dinner and helping with the homework and doing the laundry and doing the work and the job. And, all those things add up to, I think, giving women some hurdles in their ability to have career and family.
Yeah, and you're like a fabulous example as a scientist, and imagine that you had to travel so far, to Africa, to everywhere, and being a single mom, that's quite amazing. For me, that was amazing reading that book.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, so all of you out there who are women who want to know about how this wonderful woman made it, and started a new science called Canopy Science, you should read this book. It's an amazing story of how she achieved that, even though she was a single mother with 2 children. Yeah. Okay, now let's get right into the book then, Dr. Qing Li. On your book, can you tell us a little bit about the science of forest bathing? What it is, why is forest bathing so beneficial? Can you tell us a bit more?
Yeah.
And you might want to share your slides.
Yeah. In fact, stress is a key word to understand the background of the science behind of the forest bathing. In fact, in 1984, techno stress. Maybe you know the techno stress. In 1984, techno stress due to the new technology.
Oh, technocrats.
Technology will produce stress. This we call the techno stress. For example, you use your phone, use your computer. I use some new machine. So stress is a key word to understand the background of the forest bathing. In fact, stress can reduce many chronic diseases such as cancers, hypertension, depression, cardiovascular diseases, panic disorder, sleep disorder, eating disorder, you name it. However, forest bathing can reduce stress. So it's a key word. Yeah. In fact, before the study of the forest bathing, I have my hypothesis. So immune function is very important for human health. So immune cell can kill tumor cells, can kill virus, can kill bacteria. So immune system is very important for human health. And stress will inhibit immune function. And I speculate that forest bathing may boost immune function by reducing stress. So this is the story of the start of my story. So from 2004 to 9, I conducted many experiments to investigate the effect of forest bathing on human health. So I took a subject to the forest and let them to take a forest bathing, very slow walk. So before and after the forest bathing, I took a blood sample.
I see.
Sample, to measure the immune function, to measure the blood pressure, to measure the stress hormone. I found after the almost 20 years research, I have found forest bathing can reduce your stress and stress hormone, such as adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol. Forest bathing can reduce your blood pressure and heart rate.
Wow.
Prevents the hypertension and heart diseases. The forest bathing can boost your immune function.
Right. Amazing.
Can improve your sleep quality. Forest bathing also can improve your positive feelings and reduce your negative feeling, negative emotions such as anxiety, depression, anger, fatigue, confusion. So to show the preventive effect on the depression. So forest bathing also can reduce your, we call it sympathetic nervous. And reduce the sympathetic nervous and improve the parasympathetic nervous. We call the rest and restore. So so many beneficial effects. So it's very good. So because of a lot of beneficial effects, so after I published this book, so many people enjoyed forest bathing very much. In fact, this book has been translated into 26 languages.
Wow, it's amazing.
Very popular because the power of the forest bathing. Because I find the power of the forest bathing. Because my experiment, the forest bathing has become a science from feeling. Because from feeling to a science.
Yes, true.
It's a key word for the forest bathing. From feeling to a science.
True.
Okay?
So how did
science? It's not a feeling.
It's a science, right? It's a proven science.
Okay.
And you also mentioned in your book that it's not just the relaxation, but there's something from the trees, from the leaves. Could you tell us a bit about that?
In fact, so the forest bathing, when we enjoy the forest bathing, we usually use the 5 senses. Senses of the smell, sense of the sight, sense of the hearing, sense of the touch, and sense of taste. So for example, you just see beautiful scenery of the forest, we call it sense of the sight. Also the good smell, because we call it
the forest smell.
But also they call it the essential oil. So it's a total effect of the 5 senses. So for example, even in the city, you also can enjoy the forest bathing in city parks.
Yes, that's true. Thank you. So that's how the forest bathing became from how do you say, just a feeling into a science.
From a feeling to a science.
And I believe you have hospitals or something like that around Japan for forest bathing, or centers or something like that. Could you tell us a bit?
In fact, in Japan, we have 65, we call the forest therapy bases. So forest therapy, we have 65 forest therapy bases from the north of the Hokkaido to south of the Okinawa in the whole country. So those forest bases were certified by scientific research.
I see. So
we took a subject to the forest and stay there for several hours. Before and after, we measure some parameters like blood pressure, stress hormone, and also the heart rate, blood pressure. So we confirmed the effect of forest bathing.
Right.
In that forest.
How many hours do you have to be in the forest in order to get the benefits?
Yeah, longer better. longer the better. But if you 2 hours will give you a good effect. So we usually I usually send people to stay for at least 2 hours.
And I read in your book with no mobile phone. Is that true?
No phone. Because in fact, stress is bad one. Stress. So stress from the new technology, includes the cellular phone, include a camera, a computer. So
I see.
In fact, in the modern people, we disconnect from nature because of the new technology.
I see. So you need to get away from all of that and go into.
I usually tell the people. So during the forest visit, you don't use your phone, don't use your camera, because if you use your phone and use your camera, you will miss the forest landscape. You will because they will produce stress to reduce the effect of forest visit.
Yes.
So you can check your phone and the camera after the forest visit, not during forest visit.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. That's a very wonderful tip. I have to tell my kids not to have your phone while you are enjoying nature.
During the forest visit, don't use the phone. Don't check your phone. Just enjoy the forest atmosphere.
Yes. And now to Dr. Canopy Meg. Can you tell us a little bit about the science? This. I think you basically founded Canopy Science. Could you tell us a bit about that and why that is so important for us now?
Sure, and I think it probably links to forest bathing in many ways. When you think about climbing a tree, everybody was a child at some point. And a lot of times when I give lectures, I ask people, whoever climbed a tree in their childhood, and most everyone raises his or her hand and remembers that. And of course, we are related to primates that lived in the trees in many cases. So there is some connection, I think, with our health and our well-being to think about climbing a tree. At least it brings a smile to people's faces. So the science, as I did mention a little bit earlier, was born in a sense when I was so interested in leaves. I wanted to look at this crazy but simple question about how long a leaf lives on a tropical tree, because we know in the temperate zones they fall. Every year in my childhood, the trees would turn orange and yellow, the leaves, that is, and they would fall in the winter and come back in the spring for 6 months. And yet in the tropics, it's green all year round. So as I gazed up to these tall tropical trees as a graduate student for my first time in a rainforest, I couldn't believe that they stayed green all the time. And I thought, well, maybe the leaves live 2 years at the most, and that would make a perfect PhD research project. So my advisor said, but wait a minute, you have to climb the tree. And I said, really? Couldn't I train a monkey or something? And he said, no, I think you'll have to invent a way to climb the tree. So lo and behold, that's what led me to creating a slingshot to put the string line over a branch and then put the rope up and create a harness to hold myself onto the rope and get up there. And lo and behold, when I first climbed up, and there were a handful of us that did that way back in the beginning, it was just amazing. It was like coming into a new world full of life, full of fruits and flowers and pollinators. And lo and behold, a guy in Costa Rica did the same thing as I did in Australia. So I basically started the science in the Asia, in the tropics of Australia, whereas another guy was inventing a similar technique in Costa Rica. So we both never knew each other for 5 years before the days of internet, but we're some of the first people to make those discoveries. And it was pure fun, I have to say. I went on to build one of the first canopy walkways, or at least help design it, so that I could take other people into the trees. You can't have 10 people on one rope, or guess what? You might break it. It could be dangerous. But on a bridge, an aerial trail, it's quite wonderful to take a group up and make discoveries together.
That's fabulous. And that's kind of like forest bathing too, right? Walking in the canopies.
Yes, it's wonderful. It's very healthy, and people do feel so invigorated. It gives you such a different view of the forest to be in the top of the tree versus being in the very dark, sometimes a little bit quieter forest floor, whereas the canopy is, I call it riotous with all the life and lots of the good oxygen up in the canopy, close to the leaves, of course.
Fascinating. So how about this canopy science now? I mean, besides the fact that you sort of built these things and take people there, but what's the scientific thing? What's the benefit of discoveries on the canopy for us?
Being up there by developing the toolkit, of course, it allowed us to get very close to all sorts of things. This is kind of crazy, but this little jar has a new species of beetle from the Amazon. And you might say, oh, it's very brown and small and ordinary, but it's a really important piece of the whole complex quilt of the forest, where this thing eats the bromeliads, and the bromeliads house the poison dart frogs, and the birds drink from the bromeliads. So everything's interconnected. And by going into the canopy, we were able to solve a lot of the mysteries and questions about what makes a forest healthy. And we were able to do things like measure the amount of oxygen the leaves produce, measure the carbon storage of the whole tree, start to understand how trees are this incredible climate control, and of course, understand a lot of these millions of new species, some of which could be the cures for cancer, many of which are important pollinators that help the farmers near the forests. And so it just gave us all of the answers about the forest that we never knew before. And it is all, of course, this overarching science called ecology, where we explore the relationships. And we can't have just a tree. We need to have the creatures that live in the tree, that nibble the leaves and produce the nutrients by pooping on the forest floor. And we need to have the pollinators of the fruits of the tree. And we need to have the neighboring tree and the things that live on the tree surface, like moss and lichen. So canopy science has really opened our eyes to understanding that complexity of a tropical forest, as well as the mysteries of the simpler temperate forests. So it's been important in all kinds of forests around the world.
That's fantastic, especially here in Indonesia, where we still have quite a bit of tropical forest, although it's disappearing, as we all know.
You have to work hard for your forest. They're very, very important and very special indeed.
So thank you. That's fascinating. So what else? What other discoveries? I mean, I read your book and you talk about how anybody would be able to find new species. I mean, it's just like, wow, really? And how does that? How do you say? Because I'm not an ecologist or a biologist. So how does that science of discovering new things, as you said, how does that become a store of knowledge? I mean, for humanity.
In some ways, it's like a genetic library, and our knowledge is really important to understand that library. A little parallel might be if you go to an art gallery, don't you love it when you see an artist that you recognize, or you say, oh my gosh, I know about that art? And so if you go into the forest and you know one or two species, you feel really happy about that. You might look around and say, oh, it's just green. I don't know anything. But the minute you start recognizing a little bird, or hearing a song of a bird, or knowing one species of tree, I think it gives you a lot of importance about feeling comfortable, feeling excited, enthusiastic. So we will probably never know everything that lives in a forest. In fact, canopy biologists estimate that something like 90% of what's in the canopy is still unknown and unclassified. But if one or two of those produces a toxin that might cure a disease or that might be responsible for some level of keeping that tree healthy, because we now know that a little moderate amount of chewing on leaves can actually incite growth of the tree and help keep the tree healthy in a sense. So we need to understand all those dynamics so that we can create healthy forests. We can't simply expect the trees to grow forever. And as we shrink forests and we cut them down, we also need to know how to restore them. We can't just plant trees. We need to bring the bugs back and the birds back and the animals back. We need to know what is the composition of the forest in order to restore healthy forests. So the canopy is that hotspot of life. We need to understand all of the pieces of that system in order to put it back together when it's becoming more and more important as we continue to degrade our forests. I'm sad to tell you.
Yes, yes. Yeah, we're all very sad about that, unfortunately. But we'll go back to that later. Now back to Dr. Qing Li. You know, if we are now mostly, I mean, most of the world, more than 50% of the people of the world now live in cities. And it's absolutely wonderful to think that in Japan, where you have one of the, you know, several of the biggest cities in the world even, you have 65 centers of, you know, of medical forest medicine.
Or therapy basis.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then how does that relate though to our city life? How do you have any advice how, now that we know forest bathing is so important, if we are living in cities, what do we do?
Okay. In fact, city, so people in the big city also can enjoy forest bathing by visiting the city parks. So in Tokyo, we have a lot of big city park with a lot of trees. So in my studies, I have found that walking the city parks also can reduce your stress hormone, reduce your negative feelings, negative emotions like anxiety, depression, anger, fatigue, confusion, and improve your positive feelings like vigor. So just 2 hours walking the big city parks. Yeah, this is the first one. But if you don't have a big city park, you also can enjoying forest bathing in small parks. So with not a lot of trees, but a smaller number of trees also have a smaller effect. Yeah, this is the forest bathing in the city parks. You also can bring the forest bathing into your home, to your office.
Your home? How do you do that?
For example, so do you know the essential oil? The essential oil, taken from the trees. For example, in Japan, we have very good essential oil. We call the Japanese cypress. Japanese cypress, or the pine tree, is a pine tree. In fact, in the birthplace of the forest bathing in Japan, there are a lot of Japanese cypress pine trees. In fact, because the pines will produce a lot of essential oil, a lot of we call the phytoncide, a good smell. In fact, at that forest, the birthplace of forest bathing, at that forest, there are almost no mosquito.
Oh, mosquito? Did you say?
Mosquito, no mosquito.
No mosquito.
Because of the smell. This is it's true. It's not a joke. It's true. If you don't believe, you can visit one. Yeah, this is very good. Because we call the sense of the smell. So I want to say, if you don't have a forest in the city park, you can enjoy the sense of the smell by using essential oil. at your home,
Really?
at your office. So, in fact, I use the essential oil at my office, at my home. Yeah,
Right.
I use the So you can produce the smell by using the essential oil from the trees, especially from the Japanese cypress trees.
Oh,
So this
that's
is you use the smell. Another way is you can put some plants, flower,
into your home.
Your office, and enjoy the sense of the sight.
That's true. 5 senses.
Watch DVD. Recently, there are a lot of beautiful DVD taken from the forest. So you can enjoy it by YouTube. Yeah, there are a lot of forest DVD. You can enjoy the sense of the sight, also sense of hearing. So a lot of the forest we call the sound of the forest. Yeah,
that's fascinating. You could have a little forest spa, you just enjoy the sights, the sound. How about the taste? You mentioned in your book also, if you go forest bathing in the forest, how does the sense of taste come into it?
Yeah, in fact, for example, during you visit the forest, you will taste the fresh air from the forest. You also can drink the water. We call the maize in Japan. We call the lot of water from the forest. Yeah, in fact, in Japan, a lot of good forest. We call the maize good forest from the forest. Good water from the forest.
Water, okay.
Yeah, water. So you also can taste. You also can eat food. Taking from the
foraging from the forest.
So we call the Japanese vegetable, Japanese mountain vegetable, Japanese in Japan.
Santai. Yes, I know. Yes.
Japanese mountain vegetable.
I see.
Yeah, this is the taste. So in Japan, in fact, in the forest therapy basis in Japan, they provide we call the forest therapy meals. Forest lunch box.
My goodness.
Those boxes, the food take from the forest. For example, rice from the forest, the food from the forest, the vegetable from the forest. Also
amazing.
Water, tea from the forest. So we call the forest therapy lunch box. So it's a sense of the taste. So there are a lot of another one, the sense of touch. So you can touch the tree. You also can put your whole body in the forest atmosphere. We call the sense of touch. You also can walk in the forest by your barefoot.
With your barefoot. We must ask Meg about that.
But you have to confirm the safety of the forest.
Of course.
When you walking by barefoot, so you can connect the nature, connect the forest, connect the grass by your foot, by your barefoot. So you can enjoy the forest by the bathing by total 5 senses.
That's true. You don't always have to be in the forest, but sometimes just to have beautiful DVD playing on your huge screen or pictures. That's so wonderful. And I think we have many people who fall in love and become, even biologists just by watching Animal Planet. All beautiful. Partly that's how I came to be environmentalist a little bit, because spent all my youth watching Jacques Cousteau and everybody else, David Attenborough. That's part of my own education. So I realize what you mean. Yeah, because I think a lot of us think that if we don't have a forest, then we can't do forest bathing, right? I mean, maybe in Indonesia it's still possible. We still have forests like an hour or two away. But I think after reading your book, realize very much what to do. Because I think you did say, right, when you go to the forest, what to do. Yeah. What were the things that you said about what to do when you're in the forest? To be quiet or something. I can't, with the light.
In fact, forest bathing is a very simple activity. You just slow walk. So slow walk is good for the beginner of the forest bathing, because if you walk too fast, you will miss the landscape you will miss the forest atmosphere. So slow walk. So you also can do some Tai Chi.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I'm Chinese, so I can do some Tai Chi exercise. So
or yoga
I
or something.
I usually show people how to enjoy forest bathing in the forest by the exercise of Tai Chi. So you also can do the deep breathing, like this one. You also can do some yoga breathing. So also you can take a picnic with your friend and with your family. So it's
Is it okay
very
to
important.
talk?
Yeah,
Is it okay to talk, or we have to be very quiet?
Well, yeah, just it's very important. Just be in nature, be in forest. Yeah, and don't use the cellular phone. Don't use your camera. Yeah,
No
just
camera,
enjoy the nature. Yeah, forget the daily life for the daily life. Just
Yes.
into the forest. Yeah, stay in forest. Yeah, be in forest is very important.
Thank you. Thank you. It's like
Okay.
an immersion in the forest. Thank you very much, Dr. Qing
Okay,
Li.
thank you.
Okay. Now back to Dr. Meg again, Dr. Canopy Meg. Like we said, you've been around, I know, to all parts of the world. Can you tell us a little bit about the future of forests? And we've seen obviously the wildfires going around. As a scientist, can you tell us a bit more about the future?
I will. And, just to comment on the forest bathing, I think to myself how amazing and wonderful it is for people to get health when they go out into a forest. But of course, without canopy biologists and the research in forests, we won't have those habitats in the future. And I make an analogy in my book about what if you went to a doctor and he just looked at your big toe and said, your brain is healthy, your ears and eyes are fine. You would probably switch doctors. And for about 100 years, we've mostly studied trees by looking at the bottom only and never at the whole tree. And so only now, if we can continue to research the whole tree and fund research on the whole forest, can we be sure that we'll have a healthy forest in the future. So somehow we have to mix forest bathing with our interest and enthusiasm to do the science and keep the forest healthy. And right now, even in my lifetime, half of the world's primary forests have disappeared. It's a very dire situation. And with clearing for agriculture, that's one problem. With urbanization, it's a second problem. But the insidious problem is, of course, climate change caused by humans polluting the air and warming the temperature, which is now leading to a lot of insect outbreaks. Insects love hot, dry climates.
Yeah, that's what I didn't understand when I read your book about the insects.
And I'll talk about that in a minute. And then fires, of course, more fire when it's hotter and drier. So with this climate change comes this condition that is causing our forest to disappear. And if you think about it, a lot of insects can't thrive in the very humid places because they get fungal attacks or some things happen, but they become more epidemic, as you know, in farmers' fields and in places that have hot, dry conditions. And so we're seeing in certain parts of the world insect outbreaks in Africa, for example, and insect outbreaks in Australia. The more it's hotter and drier, the larger the numbers of those insect outbreaks tend to be. So it's really also goes hand in hand with the fires, because as we fragment the forest or break it into little pieces, it becomes drier because the edges are drier than the interior of the forest, and it's more prone to the flames or the volatile oils of even some of the trees igniting. So we do have real serious issues. In my last chapter, I try to create hope. I think it's important for young people to have hope that we can save our forests and not just have a few patches left for the wealthy. So I have launched a new program called Mission Green, trying to identify those most important and endangered forests of the world, because remember, they're like a genetic library, and we need to keep those genetic libraries for the future of the world's forests. And so hopefully, and before I go to the grave, I can help save those 10 endangered forests by building these canopy walkways to create ecotourism and then allow local people to have an income from their forests rather than being tempted to sell the logs to the timber industry. So we have this economic issue that is really part of the solution of forests. And I'm just so hopeful that we can get enough funding. Maybe we could get forest bathing to fund saving some of the forests or something, you know.
That would be fantastic.
And figure out ways to save our forests, and not just the forests next to the city, but the whole earth needs her forests. You know, we are Amazon for Japan and for New York City and other places. It's all part of this global cycle of health. And so it's all connected. And I really hope that people will read my book and start to understand how trees do keep us alive. It's so, so critical.
Thank you. And maybe you can tell us a little bit of your amazing project in Ethiopia.
Sure. And that's one of the countries. We have a number of countries where the government and the people don't have the income for conservation the way other countries do, like Japan and America. And yet that's part of our global heritage. The forests in Ethiopia have creatures and tree species found nowhere else in the world that are all so important to global health. And so I've been very fortunate. They're working with priests, religion and science together, which is something that most people say, oh, that's impossible because they don't even go together. But the priests want to save all of God's creatures. And I, as a biologist, want to protect biodiversity. So we've created a great partnership of trust, and through education of the priests who never have access to computers or Google Earth images to recognize how endangered their forests really are, I've been able to work with them and also help educate the kids in the schools. And together we're simple solutions here. We're building stone walls by pulling the rocks out of the farmers' fields, which they love because it helps their crops. Right. And then we're we're putting these walls around these little tiny church forests, they're called, little fragments of forest left that are surrounding the church. And we're protecting that genetic library from the cattle and sheep eating them, from the boundaries getting kind of eroded by the farmers clearing and pushing against the boundaries. And we're creating these wonderful green patches, and the priests are happy and the farmers are happy, and the future of Ethiopia is much more insured. So it's been a great example of what I call bottom-up conservation, meaning you work with the local people. You don't just throw money at the government and hope that it trickles down to saving the trees. You really need to work with the people that live in the forests and near the forests in order to ensure the stewardship of the trees. So it's in my book again. There's a whole chapter on Ethiopia, another chapter on near you, Malaysia.
Yes, the project.
Yeah. Here's a picture of one of those church forests in the book, and you can see how the little round church in the middle is surrounded by the green, and everything else has been cleared. So it's a very, very urgent situation in Ethiopia to save her trees.
And you know, I mean, I guess if you see the whole of Ethiopia and you only have these little green dots, I mean, what is the, how do you say, some people would say, well, they only have little patches, you know, why should we save them? I mean, just as a, you know, I think that's a question some people would ask.
Right. It's a great question too. And again, it's all comes back to that. Well, look at, you know, we have a few little art galleries around the world where we save the most wonderful paintings. We have these forests where we're saving the most important thing called native species. And we can just hope and pray that with time, the people in Ethiopia need more sophisticated agriculture. They don't have irrigation. They don't have tractors. They don't have metal tools. So they're plowing and planting a much larger part of their landscape. But once they get that advanced agriculture, then probably they can expand the conservation of their forests. They can start to connect those little patches. They can plant back those native trees. But for now, we're in an urgent situation of saving the genetic library before it disappears, because otherwise they can't ever restore their forests. So that's the best we can possibly do, and hope for that day soon when their agriculture is advanced enough to allow them to conserve a little bit more of their landscape.
Thank you. And I know that you have a foundation. Could you tell us, tell our people who are watching how they can help in that effort?
You can look online, www.treefoundation.org. I started that foundation to save forests by building these canopy walkways. We built one in Florida, of all places, because that's where I live. And believe it or not, Florida is cutting all of her trees down for developments, for housing. And so we needed a foundation in order for people to donate funds to save forests. And we built a canopy walkway here in Florida to give people an appreciation for their trees. And it attracts 500,000 visitors a year. It brings in about $30 million in revenue to the local community. So it's one of our first examples of how these canopy walkways or aerial trails can contribute to the economy and the conservation of the local area by giving people a real love for their forests. And so now we use that same tree foundation we're hoping to build a walkway in Madagascar next year, which is very urgent to save her forests. We've built a walkway in the Amazon. We've built some walkways around the world, a beautiful one in Malaysia. Oh, I hope you can go, Suzy, to Penang.
Yes, I've literally looked it up, and I'm dying to go when this COVID is over.
Again, creating these in places where the forests need us. And I'm so excited to tell you that forest in Penang just got a UNESCO designation as a World Heritage, meaning it will be saved in perpetuity, which is so exciting and important.
That's so exciting. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Just as a last word, maybe, Dr. Qing Li, any last few words you'd like to say to everyone who's tuning in to this interview? So what's your advice? Maybe something short, and then we'll go to Meg.
Okay. I talk about the future of the forest building future. Yeah. In fact, tree planting and the forest protection are big challenge in the future. In fact, we lost a lot of forests now. Yeah. In fact, forests are very important to our children. So forest is good for children's mental and physical development. So teaching the importance of forest to our children is a very important part of the forest protection. So if our children realize the importance of the forest, we will protect them.
Right.
In fact, if we let our children play outside now, they will become the green architecture of the future. Yes. And green city mappers.
Yeah.
And tree mappers and the gardener. Also the forest therapist.
Yes, that's true.
Forest medicine doctor like me.
Yes, like you.
So I give you the final last sentence. Let's go to forest bathing.
Yes, thank you. Let's all go forest bathing.
Let's go to forest bathing.
Yes, let's go forest bathing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Megan. I learned a lot about the tree from you. Thank you for your story.
And now, Dr.
for your interview.
Thank you. And Dr. Meg, perhaps some last words you'd like to leave with everyone who's watching?
Well, first, I do advocate the same issue as the doctor, that we have to get kids into nature. It's so important, and only parents can do that. I beg of every parent not just to take their children to Disney World or Paris, but to take them out into the forest and maybe to a canopy walkway where they will be so excited to see the whole tree. I think second, I like to think about the fact that trees can't speak. They're not like dolphins or, primates that get a lot of attention on television for saving them. And I'm always proud to be a Lorax, which is a Dr. Seuss character that shouts for the trees. And in my book, in the introduction, they say that Meg is the Lorax for the trees. I think if we all can learn about trees, read my book or other books and be that voice for the trees. We really need to save big trees. It is not good enough to just plant trees. Planting trees is great for the next, for your great grandchildren, but you need to save big trees in your community. And we need to have a voice for that because it's so tempting in cities to cut the trees down to make the highways bigger, cut the trees down for the apartment blocks, but we can make architecture work with our trees. We need to value those trees like we do the Mona Lisa or the Eiffel Tower and say nobody should ever cut a big tree down. And I hope that my book and other people's interest in trees will lead them to treat trees like the big, wonderful treasure that they really are for the future of our health. So get out there and learn about trees and save trees. That's my word for everybody.
Thank you very much, both of you, for your great appreciation. And this is a wonderful end to our, our hour-long chat with Dr. Qing Li and Dr. Meg Lowman. And now I have to go to the end. Okay, just 1 minute. I have to find where's the script. Okay, right, Fern, here we go. So thank you very much. Thank you for supporting the Yayasan Muadra Swari. Sorry. Thank you. So I have to, my glasses are sort of a problem. Okay. Thank you for supporting the Yayasan Mudra Swari Saraswati Patrons Program, and to the festival's partners who made the Ubud Writers and Readers Festival possible. And so don't forget to follow Ubud Writers Festival on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or visit ubudwritersfestival.com for more information about the program. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this wonderful interview with our fabulous guest tonight. And don't forget, talk to the trees and appreciate every tree around you, especially the really big ones. And don't forget, go forest bathing. Thank you. Good night.